Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are talking about Star Trek. But before we get started, guys, just remember that not all of my videos are going to come to the YouTube channel. Some will be coming to only my BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble channels. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you have not started following me on at least one of those three alternative sites, the links to those are down in the description below. Anyway, guys, let's get into this article from Screen right here, and that is Chris Pine thinks Star Trek films shouldn't chase Marvel-size audiences. Chris Pine says that Star Trek movies should be made for people that love Star Trek and not try to chase billion-dollar Marvel-sized audiences. We will circle back to this point by the end, but let's go ahead and get into this. Chris Pine says Star Trek films shouldn't be chasing Marvel-sized audiences. Pine plays Captain James T. Kirk in the rebooted feature franchise known as the Kelvin Timeline, appearing in the first three films in the series, including Star Trek '09, Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek Beyond. The feature franchise has been on an extended hiatus since the last film was released, with the focus shifting predominantly to the streaming shows on Paramount+. But would the focus have shifted if Star Trek Beyond was a success at the box office? Because Star Trek Beyond bombed. More than likely as a result of Star Trek Into Darkness and J.J. Abrams lying to everybody and their grandmother about the fact that, well, it's not just a remake of Wrath of Khan, it's a brand new movie, blah 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 blah. And then the movie came out with the four famous words from Benedict Cumberbatch, the whole "My name is Khan." Pissed everyone off, and then what did J.J. Abrams do? Well, we're not making Star Trek movies for Star Trek fans. We're making these movies for the new fans. And guess what? For Star Trek Beyond, the new fans didn't fucking show up. So, would the shift to streaming have happened had Star Trek Beyond actually been a box office hit? You know, just something to think about. After numerous creative shifts, Star Trek IV is now set for a 2023 release, with WandaVision creator Matt Shakman at the helm, and allegedly the cast of the Kelvin Timeline movies didn't even know that Star Trek IV was going to happen. I still stand by the fact that, you know, I'm not putting too much faith in Star Trek IV, because this is now like what, the 6th or 7th announcement of Star Trek IV at this point. Here we go. The new Star Trek films have amassed a global haul of $1.1 billion, which is a far cry from the gross of a single Marvel film on a good day. By contrast, Spider-Man No Way Home made $1.8 billion alone globally, and I argue Spider-Man No Way Home is the exception and not the rule. But even smaller scale profit Marvel film like Eternals still made more than Star Trek Beyond, which presents a difficult monetary scenario for the studio in relation to cost. Ultimately, Star Trek films cost about as much to make as a Marvel film. Well, not originally, not when the movies started to be made in, you know, the late 70s and even going up through the early 2000s. I think the most expensive Star Trek movie made only costed, you know, had a production budget of $20 million before Star Trek '09. So, you know, don't give me this cockamamie horseshit of, well, Star Trek films cost as much to make as a standard Marvel movie. No, they don't. No, they don't. They could cut back on their budgets and they'd be fine. But the profits aren't even close, particularly in hitting the magical billion-dollar mark for a single film. While talking to Deadline, Pine mentions the difficult dynamic of competing for Marvel audiences, which he believes Star Trek shouldn't be chasing. Pine mentions that the franchise has always been after the international market and hitting that billion-dollar mark because that's what Marvel was doing. However, Pine thinks that Star Trek should operate in a smaller zone, with the movies being made for the people, for the people that love this group of people, that love the story, that love Star Trek. He also emphasizes the budget, saying they should focus on making it for a budget so that when it doesn't make $1 billion, it's still a win. And here is Chris Pine's quote right here splashed up on the screen. Let's make it for them, and then if people want to come to the party, great. But make it for a price and make it so that if it makes $500 million, that's really good. again, I'm going to circle back to this by the end, but there are a couple more paragraphs here. Pine also reiterated that he's met with Shakeman or Shockman, I apologize, I've never heard the name pronounced, the studio and others, and that he likes everyone involved with Star Trek 4, particularly his castmates that he gets to work with on the series. Still, everything hinges on the script for him. The actor remains committed to the role, citing the impact it had on his career, saying, quote, "It's cemented the career that I have now. I'm honored to be a part of it. It's given me so much. I think there are plenty of stories to tell. There's plenty of stories to tell in it." While Pine awaits sitting in the captain's chair again, the actor has 2 new films dropping this year, including All the Old Knives on Prime Video and The Contractor. He will also appear in the latest adaptation of Dungeons & Dragons in 2023. Pine makes some great points about the Star Trek franchise, especially as it's always been more of a niche series, but with an exceptionally passionate fan base. While it's certainly not a franchise in the red in terms of profitability, it simply isn't on the same level as the superhero genre, and that's okay. Focusing on making Star Trek films that appeal to Star Trek fans should always be the path to follow, as attempting to make it into a superhero film goes against everything it was created to be. Leaning into the lore and mythology created by Gene Roddenberry should be the standard, just as Marvel leans into the lore and mythology created by Stan Lee and the rest of the creators at Marvel. Hopefully Star Trek 4 will find a way to balance a budget and tell a story that appeases fans, turns a profit, and maybe brings in some new viewers along the way, billion-dollar box office or not. And I think that this is a great point here, is that not every goddamn movie franchise needs to be a billion-dollar franchise. This exact same problem plagued the Terminator. Right? The only Terminator movie to make more than $1 billion was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Every movie after that made nowhere near it. I think the most profitable was just above $500 million, if I'm not mistaken. But Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, had a production budget of $200 million, and then they were shocked that it only grossed $500 million. Oh, heaven forbid! The same thing happened with Terminator Salvation. $200 million production budget, and I think grossed only like $500 million. And then once Paramount and Skydance got a hold of it for the one movie, it was Terminator Genesis. I'm looking this up real quick just to make sure I got my numbers right, because I don't remember Genesis all that well. I remember the movie, not how much it was made for. Okay, Genesis had a slightly smaller production budget of $155 million, but it only grossed $440,603,537 worldwide. So again, nearly $500 million for that movie. That was a great haul. The problem is the production budget was so goddamn high that it needed to make at least $750 million in order to make a decent profit on it. You know, this is the biggest problem, is like if it's not $1 billion, if it's not guaranteed to make $1 billion, the studios don't want to touch it, and that's incredibly dumb. Because like I said, guys, the most expensive Star Trek movie made prior to Star Trek 09, if I'm not mistaken, I'll put it up on the screen. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna look this up after I record, because I'm not gonna bore you guys to death. I believe Star Trek Nemesis was the most expensive Star Trek movie made on a production budget of only $20 million. Oh, heaven forbid. Why didn't you spend at least 150 or 200 million? I think it's a great point that, let Star Trek be Star Trek, let Marvel be Marvel, because again, if Star Trek Beyond was made on a budget of let's just say like $40 or $50 million, it would have been considered a relative box office success given its budget. But you have the studios that are putting way too much goddamn pressure on these franchises for, well, if they're not billion-dollar franchises, we don't want to waste our time making them, which inevitably leads to the fact that you're making less and less movies, because less and less movies can hit the billion-dollar mark, and then you're over-investing. You're investing, what was it, like $200 million a movie, so now you need to make $1 billion just to break even. It's not a fucking sustainable industry, whether you want to admit it or not. And guys, that's pretty much all. That's pretty much all I have for you. Before I drag this out for way longer than it needs to be, if you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I am terrible at ending these videos. So I will just see you guys next time.